All right. Welcome to Mazecast episode, whatever number this is, coming out live on whatever date this is, and whatever rooms we want to talk about will end up being the subject. It's been a while since we did one of these, primarily mindful. I've had medical problems that I've used as an excuse to get away from the old mazology. But we'll try to get back into a regular schedule here for you. Beals is here.
What?
Barry's here. I've got him muted at the moment because he's drawing the rooms and the scratching of his. Oh, there we go. He unmuted himself. He took matters into his own hands. Okay. Actually, it's not haphazard. We're going to be talking about 12 and 28 tonight, which I think we first promised to do something like a month ago, and have promised to do like 9 times between then and now. Interesting rooms. Obviously, we're doing them together because these are the 2 rooms that are nearly identical. They're called the Deja Vu rooms on the Abyss. I think that's probably a fine title for them, although it's more words than I want to say. Deja Vu rooms. I might just call them the twins or whatever, but you know what we're talking about here. They're almost the same. The door numbers are different. Some fingers and things held up in the pictures on the wall are different. And there's a little bit of difference on the door in the middle, which we'll talk about. The text is exactly the same. And other than that, the drawings are as nearly identical as Manson could get them. There are some small detectable differences just because he had to redraw the room. But it's essentially 2 identical rooms. These are considered 5-star rooms, both of them on the Abyss, right?
I think so.
Yeah. Each
5-star question mark. You know how that goes.
Yeah. I should 5 stars with a question mark. I shouldn't have said it with so much hesitation. I'm pretty confident. Yeah. And each one has essentially just the one solution. And in room 12, there are 3 pictures on the wall. One of them has someone holding up 2 and a 1, which indicates 21. One of them just has a guy holding up 2 fingers for 2. And the third picture has a man with a fork and knife and some bare bones on his plate, indicating that he just ate. And so we've got the old odd one in principle. We've got 21, 2, and 8 all mentioned by the paintings. The room that's not mentioned is 39, and that is, in fact, the correct door. And this is on the path on the way back from 45, and that keeps you on the 16-step path. And then room 28, its simple solution is, I guess, sort of the inverse of 12, and that you put all 3 pictures together to give you the one correct door, which is you've got 21 on the 1, and then you've got somebody holding up 1 finger and the next one, and then you've got 1 bone on the plate of the man with the knife and fork. 21 plus 1 plus 1 equals 23, which is the correct answer from this room. There's a little more than that because there's also the letters D and U in both rooms, and those are part of the riddle of the path on the way back from 45. Those are letters that you use to spell the word shoulders. But other than that, that's it as far as what has been accepted as a solution to either one of these rooms. And it's not like there are a lot of good solutions out there that haven't been selected. It sort of appears as though that's what's going on with these rooms solution-wise. Is there anything I've forgotten from anyone that you guys think is notable solution-wise?
Other than setting aside solutions, I think the only other topic that's really been a hot issue is the whole matter of the different appearance outside of the door in 43, and people debating what exactly is going on there art-wise and what that's supposed to mean. but I don't think that that's a solution. We all seem to have our own theory as to what's going on there.
No, yeah, I think there's interesting stuff to talk about here that doesn't exactly fit into the solution arena, but I just wanted to make sure we had covered solutions before.
Yeah, as long as we're talking about the fingers, I just want to toss something out there. I was just now looking at this. I was trying to play devil's advocate and see if we could come up with some kind of an odd one in thing for 28. Because which one is it's 32 is the right exit? No,
23.
23. Right. So I was looking at the two guys with their hands with the slightly different hand configurations than in 12. And I was noticing that the guy not the guy who's eaten, but the other guy who's on the left, by virtue of only sticking one finger out, he therefore is holding back 4 fingers on one hand, and he's holding back all 5 fingers on the other hand. So you could say that's 45. And then the other guy is holding back 4 fingers and 3 fingers because he's sticking out 1 and 2. So that could give you 43. So if you wanted to come up with some half-assed way to get 23 for the guy who just ate, then you could...
No, to get 32 for the guy who just ate.
Am I making this up? Oh, yeah, 32. If you want, if you could half-ass a way to get 32 for the guy who just ate, then you could even spin another odd one in the solution there. But
holy cow, did you just come up with that?
The 4-3 and the 4-5 thing, I think I just came up with that.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
And we're not too. I mean, look what we've got in here. Let me get some screen share going on. I know. Give us a break. We haven't done this in a while.
Yeah.
Now we should have been there with the screen share right from the beginning. And I don't have the PDF open either, so I'm just going to be screen sharing from the Abyss, which probably isn't going to give people a very good picture. But you see what Beals is saying here.
Try zooming in. You might lose a little.
Room 12. I need to go to 28.
Do you think you could just blow it up a little bit? I know it'll be blurry, but
how do I? Is there a quick?
I don't know which browser you're using. You just do like Control Plus or Command Plus. Sometimes that does it.
Hey, yeah, look at that.
Oh.
Good work.
So it's going to be blurry as fuck, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's not too bad. So you see what he's saying here. We've got the 2-1 here. If we count the fingers that aren't showing, that's a 4 and a 3. Yeah. This is a 5 and a 4.
Right.
So we want a 32 out of this one so that we reference all the doors except for the correct one. Well, you see the fork is conspicuously 3-like.
Yeah, that's mentioned before, yeah.
Much more like a 3 than any fork anyone has ever used to eat a meal. And we've sort of got like a 3, a 1, and then a 1 with the bone here.
Oh, that'd
be 31 and 1 to be 32.
You could feel that. I would buy that. Yeah, I think it's fair play to have it be a different solution. Obviously, you can't get it out of his fingers with him grabbing like this, but I think it's fair play for it to be a slightly different solution with that guy because, of course, it's a slightly different solution with him in room 12 as well, where you have to do that fun little common instead of looking at his fingers. So,
holy cow, man! I think that's some good work right there.
Well, thank you. I think it's good collaborative work by you guys.
Let me see. Yeah, because see, the problem with the accepted solution there, where you just take the bone as a 1 to add to the 1 to add to the 21, is it's really arbitrary to take that 1 there when you've got the knife that's a 1 and you've got this fork that's a 3. I mean, adding 3 and 1 or 31 to those other numbers doesn't get you to one of these doors, so I guess you could use that as your reason for only taking a 1 from there, but that's a bad reason.
I would think that the only real reason is just noticing that it's gone from 2 bones to 1 bone. If you're using 12 as the baseline, which I don't know why you necessarily would be, but if you're using 12 as the baseline and comparing 28 against that, then you would notice that the bone is really the focal point. That seemed relatively fair to me. I don't feel bad about the traits.
The thing about using 12 as the baseline is that I don't think that that's legit. I don't think that makes any sense because, I mean, you would have to already know that 12 is like the correct version of the room because it's on the path. I mean, you already have to know that 12 is on the path. So you already have to have a lot of knowledge about the layout of the maze to make this deduction about room 28. Once you start saying that, I mean, you might as well say, the 23 is the right door because that's the one that's on the path or something like that.
Yeah.
That seems as legit as saying you have to know 12 is on the path to figure this one out. No, Alex has said something to the effect of these rooms needing to be read together, and other people have given readings of the room together, but I sort of suspect that there's not. Well, I mean, there's certainly there's the rooms reference each other, and they're supposed to invoke. They're supposed to make you think of the other, but I don't think in terms of solutions, you have to have seen one to solve the other one. And if we're just looking at 20, I think that's great what you just did. Looking at the fingers that are not shown.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it. It's kind of an idea, but I think it's pretty cool.
Oh man, let's look at the text for a minute and see.
Can I read the text this time?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So, of course, as Vince mentioned, the text is exactly the same for both rooms, so I'll just read in 28.
Now, here's the question. Do we need to go through the text once for each room? Because these things are going to have different connotations. I think we should go over once in each room. Let's do... Okay.
I agree, especially because of the outside stuff in relation to people trying to describe what's going on with the walls.
Let's do 12 first, then.
All right, let's do 12 first. Why not? All right. A spacious room... Stop me anytime. A spacious room with a hole in the floor.
Let's stop there.
All right.
Spacious is weird because the room is not particularly spacious. In fact, if you compare it to other rooms in the maze, it looks kind of long and narrow, doesn't it? Doesn't that back wall look kind of thin?
Yeah.
And it's not particularly empty compared to other rooms either. I mean, it's not crowded, but you've got the hole in the floor where the ladder sticking up, the D and the U, stuff on the walls. I mean, this is not a spacious room. So then the question becomes, why is Manson drawing our attention to space? Why is he using the word spacious? I don't have an answer for that, but I'm just saying that's not, that word's not there just because it's an apt description of the room, because it's not an apt description.
I also particularly agree with that. Although, well, it is, I'll say only this, it is a little rare for us to have as much exposed floor space as we do in these two rooms. Usually there are many more things piled up on the floors.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'll take your point and I'll continue. A ladder led down into the shadows. Outside, leaves shook in the wind. They didn't like the look of that hole in the floor. "Too dark down there," they cried. "Who knows what's at the bottom?" They looked at me again. "Probably a room of some kind," I volunteered quickly. "But you know what I say about appearances. It would have been a relief to get outside for a while." They wanted to know if they had been here before. How could I answer that? "I have the strangest feeling of deja vu," said one who, bolder than the rest, led us into...
Yeah, now every other room, when we go line by line, it's like every line, stop, look at this. But this one, it just seems so facially applicable to the room, you know? It just seems to literally describe the room and what's going on in a straightforward way, you know? It's hard to know what kind of... And that might be because the text had to be the same for both rooms. It had to apply to both rooms. So it had to be somewhat generic, I guess. But on the other hand, both rooms seem to depend on the paintings and, numerical representations and counting to arrive at the solutions. So it seems like there could be references to that kind of figuring in the text, but there doesn't seem to be. Now here in room 12, the idea that it's the one who's bolder than the rest who led them to the door they needed to go to is suggestive that they went down the hole that was frightening them in the rest of the text.
Right. But then, of course, you can't get that in 28.
You've got the exact same comments in room 28, which is actually what I still have up on the screen here, not room 12. Sorry, my dogs were fighting me.
No.
Yeah, I've got room 12 up.
But thank you. Yeah. We could switch to Barry. He's got room 12.
Okay. That's a good.
It's green, but it just makes more sense to me when it's kind of like that.
There we go. We'll shift focus to Barry. Yeah. Right. You got the exact same text that's going to lead you in the wrong direction if you follow that in 28. So
let me just stop you right there and saying I'm still seeing you, unless that's not indicative. It doesn't appear that your focus is on Barry. It looks like your focus is on your screen.
No.
Yeah, it doesn't on the thing.
Never mind.
I'll see what I'm saying.
Yeah.
A little bit about, what I say about appearances.
Sort of like that Christmas song.
I don't know what that, because there really aren't.
Yeah, has he made other references to appearances? Has he made verbal references to appearances in regard to in address to the guests?
Yeah, we don't know what he says about appearances, do we? You continue to judge everything. Look at 32.
Oh yeah, you continue to judge. That's. Or no, well, whichever room you're talking about, the you continue to judge line. That's.
Well, what room is that? You continue to judge.
Judge everything by. Well, I don't remember it all.
Yeah, I thought that was 32, but I guess it's not. Oh, man, this is embarrassing.
Yeah.
I made a reference. Meant to make a reference to room 34, and I said 35. And Alex was immediately like, "You mean 34?" It's a simple slip, but it was, to me, it was like, "Oh man, that's a sign." And I'm
We all hold you to a high standard, Vince.
You continue to judge everything by the way it looks. God damn it! All right, fucking forget about it.
You keep going. I'll look for it.
Okay. Well, you keep looking for that. I'm going to switch over to room 28 and read through the same text that you just read.
Please.
Except now we're going to be looking at room 28 when we do it. A spacious room with a hole in the floor. A ladder led down into the shadows. Outside, leaves shook in the wind. They didn't like the look of that hole in the floor.
Let me stop you there and just say this is something that I noticed when I was reading it before. I don't think there's really anything to this, but it's just a little strange that it seems strange that Manson basically introduces the hole in the floor twice. There's almost no need to rattle it off as, like, either one of those, if that had been the first sentence, would work fine as an introduction to the hole in the floor. But instead, he introduces it twice. It would have worked just as well to say they didn't like the look of that hole or something like that and been more efficient. Now that the topic of the hole in the floor has already been put on the table, but for some reason he introduces it in full twice, and I don't really know anything to say about that, but that jumped out at me when I was reading.
Yeah, it does seem extraneous. Sal Kreider will probably tell you that's so that he could reuse the word floor and get another double O in there.
That would work.
And also, here's where we have to talk about that door to 43 here, because it says that line, outside leaves shook in the wind. In the other room, that's fairly straightforward because you've just got, a picture to the outdoors and leaves shaking in the wind. And in fact, let's go back and look at room 12 for a second so we can compare these doors.
Oh, this was in room 6, by the way. You continue to judge everything by the way it looks. They're just judging the room in general as looking quite eerie and...
Yeah, I suspect. Okay. Room 6 is what I meant. Of course, you can't have been to room 6 and then come back to either 12 or 20. So,
well, unless there's a secret exit from the trap.
Yeah, this is a secret exit from the trap. in 12, you got this doorway to 21, and it's unusual in that what's behind the doorway actually resembles what you see in room 21, which is not usual in the mains. Ordinarily, when you can see through a doorway or you see a door or whatever, it doesn't really line up with what's on the other side. It doesn't give you a clue of what you're looking into. But here, the image you see from the doorway, the railing here, does seem to match the railing on the top balcony in room 21. So that seems to be just a straightforward, honest description of the room when it says outside leaves shook in the wind. However, when you go to room 28 and you see that same lines, now this is where it would have been nice if we'd put together an image so you could see them side by side. I'll just keep flipping back. You'll notice, first of all, there's a big block of black space here at the top of the door. The door frame, it still extends up here like it did in the other room, but there's this big black rectangle here, which doesn't seem to be part of the sky or anything. Whereas over here, it's just from inside the door frame, it's just pure sky all over. Now, also in room 12, if you look at the floor, it's harder to see here, but there's a seamless transition from inside the room to outside the room. The floorboard just...
I never noticed this before. And then you compare it to 28, and there's that thick black line.
You're right.
Put up the door frame.
Which is right at the bottom of where a door would be if this were a closed door.
No, notice.
And if you look at the sides of this image of the outside, it gets pretty rough in some places. Again, you have to look closely, but it's not smooth, straight lines. There's some wavery lines in there, and there are little dots at the top here, which are suggestive maybe of tacks or nails or something holding up a piece of paper. And what I'm getting at with all this is that I don't...
Completely straight lines in 12.
Right.
Just general artistic laxness. It's
right. Good point to make that contrast, because it's not like there are no non-straight lines in Maze, but when you compare it to room 12, those are completely straight lines. And here you've got all this weird stuff at the top and weird stuff at the bottom, and then weird wiggly lines, sort of. What I'm getting at with all this is that I don't think that is meant to actually depict an open door opening up on the outside. This is a trick. This is just a piece of paper stuck on the door looking like the outside, which is consistent with the fact that it leads to a room that's in the trap.
Yeah, I agree. I've always seen it that way. I think White Raven's interpretation is that it's just he's mentioned multiple possibilities, but he said that he leans toward overcast sky, which I don't accept at all. I mean, it's such a tremendously abstract and cartoony way of portraying an overcast sky that isn't consistent with the realism of his outdoor rooms at all. It would be really, really weird if this were supposed to be an overcast sky.
I know I can't accept overcast sky, because that's definitely not a cloud, that big black rectangle there. And there wouldn't, is that supposed to be rain then coming down from it? Or is that just if it's another layer of shading, you still got the problem that's essentially going straight across. Those aren't clouds.
I think it was, I just have to mention this because I love it. I think it was actually, SP attributed this to Ben on the Abyss, but it must have been on a private chat. Ben suggested a relief, as in the text. It would have been a relief to get outside for a while, and thought this might have been a relief. And unfortunately, of course, it can't really be, because relief in this sense refers to the way that stone carving will jut out from the flat surface that acts as the backdrop. So that doesn't apply here at all. But it's just a great little pun.
Yeah, you really want that to work.
Yeah.
But anyway, and something I've tried to make fit with this, but it doesn't really seem to fit, is the idea of, like on maps, they have things called trap streets, which are when people are making maps, they'll insert streets that don't really exist. And the point being that if a different person draws a map and they include that street, then it's like they've been caught copying the other map.
Oh, wow. I didn't know about that. That's fun.
And so I tried to think of this in those terms as, this being a copy of 12, and then it's got this sort of trap street in it where they've copied the outside that doesn't really exist.
Oh, that's fun.
But it doesn't really make sense because in 12, it's not a trap. Like, it's totally legit. It's really there. It's just, for some reason, it's not real here, and it is a trap here. So I kind of wanted to do something with that, but I don't think any of that trap street terminology stuff really works, but I wanted it to. I don't know. It's a copy, and it's a trap. I don't know. Someone figure out a way to phrase that so it doesn't sound silly. Okay.
I will say, I think that the apparent artificiality of the Lord of 43 and 28, it seems like that's probably one of the reasons that drives the perception of 28 as being the copy room and 12 as being the original, which, I agree with you that you can't just take a hardline stance that is definitely what's intended, but I think that's why people tend to think of 12 as the progenitor and 28 as the imitator. It really comes down to that door on 43.
I think that's fair. And also you've got the U and the D in 28, which don't seem to be there for any reason.
Yeah, they're just there as appendages.
Yeah, for something. I remember months ago, before the solution had been accepted on this room, we had been talking about it, and then I went to bed, and then I was falling asleep and had some thoughts, and I woke up and I thought, oh, I've got this great solution, and I sent it to the Maze chat, and it ended up being totally incomprehensible. It didn't make any sense. It's just because I was asleep that I thought it did. And it's something to do with the U being upright and looking at certain fingers that are held upright, and then the D being on its back and looking at the fingers that are sideways, and that meaning something. I don't remember exactly what it was. And I kind of like the idea of that. I kind of like the idea of the D and the U meaning something in 28.
It's interesting because I just noticed when I was looking back over these two rooms that Mr. Gentile got at a very similar idea. He didn't take it quite as far as you did, but he just pointed out that the U is upright and the D is down on its side. And so he just thought it was interesting that they were configured in that way, when they could just as easily have been configured in the reverse or in any other way, imagine.
Yeah.
And have the one that's up and the one that's down on its side. Oh, no, you know what? He did take a little bit farther. He thought that in 12, that the up and down of the U and the D are meant to suggest that you need to take the ladder to leave the room, which is, of course, the up and down, the vehicle for up and down movement. But the only problem with that is that, of course, you would have no reason not to apply that same logic in 28. And that would be the wrong choice. So,
yeah,
that's why that seems a little. That's part of what makes solving these rooms tough in general. Is you almost, because you have different numbers and completely different doors within the room that are the correct ones in the two different rooms. You can't really concoct solutions that rely on elements that are exactly the same in both rooms, because then you have to justify why they don't point to the same door in the counterpart room.
And that may be a reason why there are so few accepted solutions on the Abyss for these.
That's probably
because those solutions are really any worse than some of the solutions put forth for other rooms, but just because there's sort of a falsification mechanism here, where you can offer some sort of half-assed solution, whereas, somewhere else you might say, yeah, okay, maybe up and down ladder, okay, maybe that's something. But with these two rooms, you've got the same thing in one place working in another not. It's hard to justify calling that suggestion. Although, on the other hand, the U and the D for an up and a down, it does. I had the same thoughts. I'm guessing a lot of other people did too. One upright, the one on its back. But there's something meaning something there. It would seem inordinately, I don't want to say lazy, but inordinately simple, uncomplex for Manson to not incorporate that somehow into something in room 28 when it's there in room 12. But maybe it doesn't mean anything. Maybe it doesn't tie in any solutions.
While we're on this topic, I'll just say this is also a major obstacle in terms of, and we talked about how straightforward the text seems to be. This is also a major obstacle in finding solutions out of the text, because since the text is identical in both rooms, any solution that you could draw in 12, you have to then justify why the exact same solution doesn't work and point you to the same door in 28, and that would be wrong. And
no.
you could focus on the numbers, I guess, but then you wouldn't get the same, you wouldn't be using the same elements.
Speaking of the text, too dark down there, they cried. Who knows what's at the bottom? They looked at me again. Probably a room of some kind, I volunteered quickly. But you know what I say about appearances. It would have been a relief to get outside for a while. Now, see here, when he makes that statement about appearances, and then it's immediately followed up with going outside, that does seem suggestive about the false whatever poster or image on the door to 43.
Mm-hmm.
That is a false appearance, and it would have been a relief for them to get outside. Like going outside would be better than, well, it wouldn't be better than going to 23, but it would be better than ending up in 43. It'd be better than 32. I think I wish Greg were here, because he saw this, he had some insight on this that was clearer than I can make it here, but about how, when he talks about how it would be a relief to get outside in 12, the guide is talking about, from his perspective, because it would take them on the wrong path. To take that door to 21 would get them off the correct path, which they've almost followed, all the way back now. So if they went outside, then they've screwed up. He's went the wrong way.
Yeah.
Here, it's kind of like, to the group, it would be a relief to get outside, but they don't actually have the option of getting outside. They just have this false appearance of an ability to get outside.
Yeah. I think we had Barry trying to say something.
Oh, I was going to say I could try to ask him, but I don't know how to relay that into a question.
Ask who?
Oh, you want to use it? You want to use that as your question on the Abyss?
Oh,
These two could be a good candidate for a question on the Abyss.
No, I mean to ask Greg. I mean, I could try to relay like that, and I'll just ask him. Hey, 1228.
Join the chat.
Quick. And then I'll put I wish I could do an upside down exclamatory, but I'll try my best. I'll just do a tilde.
Okay.
And tell him that's okay. Got it. Anyway, carry on.
Oh, sorry. They wanted to know if they had been here before. How could I answer that? I have the strangest feeling of deja vu, said one who, bolder than the rest, led us into. And of course, that stuff, whether they've been there before, how could I answer that? Feeling of deja vu is presumably comes into play if they actually do visit both rooms, and not even necessarily in the same run through the maze. Where you could easily go through maze once, find room 12, and then end up in room 24, and then start over in some other day, and you find your way to room 28, and you think you're in the room you were in before. In fact, I would guess that's probably the most likely scenario for someone to actually be confused by these two rooms, is to reach them under different circumstances and not remember which one they've been to. We saw whenever we've done those two visitors in the maze episodes, and the first group were very thoughtful and conscientious and had great insight on the rooms, but they still forgot over and over which rooms they'd been to, even the room they had just come from. Room numbers don't seem to stick with people very well. So I don't remember being too confused by these rooms when I was a kid. But you could imagine people getting hung up on them because people don't seem to retain very well what room numbers are. Although here's the thing, it has a door to 45 in it, so it does seem like it'd be kind of hard to confuse with room 12.
It's true.
And here's another thing, although this goes a little maybe off the subject of the text. Okay, it goes way off the subject of the text.
Okay.
28, you can't reach room 28 until you've reached room 45. It's one of a handful of rooms that you can only reach on the way back, which seems to make the possibility of being confounded by a room 28 significantly less. You know what I mean? Because you're not going to reach it until you're you're at least far enough in that you found the secret door and gone to 45, and now you're making your way back. Presumably by that point, you've found room 12 a number of times. So I guess...
Well, that if you had seen room 12, you would have remembered it because it had the 45 door. You would have gone right through there.
Right. So it's hard to say exactly what the intended effect on the reader is supposed to be. Like, is it the reader will hopefully find this 1 second and have kind of a, hey, wait a minute reaction? Is it that they'll actually be fooled and think, oh, I've been here before and this is the way to go? Is it just to generally confuse them between the two rooms so that they forget which is the correct door from which one? I don't know, but it seems if you really wanted people to get hung up and confused about the two rooms, you would put both of them in more conspicuous locations, or I don't know, maybe not. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
What do you mean by more conspicuous location?
Well, I mean, make 28 easier to reach, because 28 is relatively difficult to get to. You have to get to room 45 first, and then it seems fairly easy to distinguish from room 12 by the fact that it connects to room 45. It doesn't seem like you're likely to go into room 28 and think, oh, this is that room I was in before. But it does seem like you'd be likely to land in here and say, hey, wait a minute, what's going on here? I've seen this thing before. Although the reality is, in flipping through the book, just to get to the page you're going to, you're almost certainly going to see both of these rooms, you know? You're going to see that there's a copy. I mean, whether that was taken into account or not, I don't know. I think for me, that's probably what happened. I don't know. Honestly, when I was first reading this book as a kid, I don't know that I ever really legitimately came to room 28, because by the time I had found the secret door, I had already mapped everything out except for the secret door, so that I just then followed the route back to 1 from 45. So I'd already, it didn't have the opportunity to work the way it was supposed to work for me.
That's too bad. I wish I could disclose the incident of how I came to figure out that 12 and 28 were the same, but I don't remember at all. It seems like it would be an interesting story. It seems like a lot of them would be interesting stories.
Yeah. So people, we never get comments on these except from Fail. Fail leaves us a lot of comments, but some people watch these stuff. We get a few dozen views on every one of these things. Presumably the same people who go to the Abyss regularly. Drop us a comment. How did you first learn of the 12 and 28 being copies, if you can remember? I'd be interested to know. Maybe in a visitors episode someday, we'll get to see someone land in 28 and see how they react to it. That could be interesting.
That would be fun. But I did want to say, I don't want to contradict you too much, but you get straight to 28 from 23, so
you can't get to 23 without going to 45 either.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, 28. Right, because 23 goes to 45.
Well, I mean, you can't reach 23 first, like the half up step.
No, you can only go to 45 the first time through 17. So any other room that leads to 45 is only
It's either 8 or 19 leads to 23, so I guess you're probably right. Those are the other two doors that lead out of it, but they don't go. They're not two-way doors.
Oh, I'm probably right. Probably. Thanks for the confirmation.
Oh, excuse me.
I'm right. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the interesting thing about 23 when it has that line about they realized they found the door they'd been seeking for so long. And I don't think we haven't done a show on 23 yet, have we?
Well, I think so.
No. But it's something we've, I think, brought up before about how that, for people who are just flipping through the book, that certainly gives us the suggestion that you're supposed to go through 23 to 45. So it helps keep people confused. And you go to 17 and it's like sort of suggesting you're not supposed to go to 45 for that room.
Mm.
Yeah. Talked about that before when we were talking about 17. So I don't think I have much to add or anything to add substantively about 12 and 28. We've kind of touched on the things. The only thing that it makes me wonder is whether the text in the other rooms is as uncluey as the text in these rooms, or whether the text in these rooms is sort of specially unhelpful because it has to apply to both rooms, which have different answers, or whether there is a lot more going on in the text that we're just not picking up on.
Yeah, maybe, but I think it's probably closest to the middle option. That since it has to pull double duty, he didn't want to throw too much in there, because otherwise he would have probably been stuck with making the correct door in both rooms the same one.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it were differently numbered, but you would probably only have been able to employ a clue that would send you to the same door out of the 4 in each case.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably the reason now, but it's still an open question. I don't have a whole lot else to add either.
The other thing that's kind of interesting to me is that, obviously for you to get room 12, why it's talking about deja vu and been there before and that kind of stuff. For you to really get what's going on with the room, you have to go to 28. But on the true path, you don't hit 28. You only hit 12. And it's interesting that he includes one half of a pairing like that on the path. It's kind of like in room 37, which has a clear connection to room 10, where they're hearing themselves on the other side of the door.
Mm-hmm.
But 37 is on the path and 10 is not, which leaves you wondering, if you follow the correct path in and out, you never go to 10. So why are they hearing themselves on the other side in room 10? The setup of those rooms really suggests that he wants you to at some point be in 10 and at some point be in 37, but the reality is that you don't. I don't know. I think that's interesting. It doesn't.
No, I don't agree with you.
Let's take a look at Barry's drawing here. How far have you gotten?
I'm about this right here. You got the guy. I was trying to do the "I will cut you" look. I got the "I will cut you" look on this guy right here. That's obviously doing. I did the Dreamcast logo before I started this, and I just kind of stopped at the Dreamcast logo, and I got a little bit of the guy with the forks, and he's ready to eat. I got the dog bones there and everything. I don't know if they're dog bones. And then that's it. I was going to work on these bricks, and that's about where I'm at. And
can you pull back and give us a shot of the whole room?
Yep, that's as far as I can pull back as my USB cable will allow. And I can turn this up if that helps. Probably helps. Or it fades it out. And of course, I have it where if it's really close, it'll it's all sharp, but far away it's blurry. I don't have there we go. I can sharpen it as I go back.
Nice.
It's kind of
nice work.
So it's thank you.
We'll have to see the finished work. Post a link, please, when you.
We'll do.
Well, that's all I've got. Does anyone have anything else to say?
I think we covered it pretty thoroughly. They really. I don't think there are any particularly conspicuous elements that we haven't talked about. I think we pretty much ran the.
Yeah, I know. I'm about to stop talking. Then I start thinking of something. I want to say more, but I think there's just probably nothing too great that needs to be added. I think you got a great solution with room 28 here.
Yeah.
I think that's probably a better solution than we had before. So I consider this a victory for everyone. Everyone's a winner when Mazecast returns. Woo. Good night, everyone.
Congratulations.
Do we want to call it right now, or are we going to do room 22 next?
Yeah, you want to do 122, Barry?
22.
What the Trident room?
Yeah. 22's a very fancy room.
All right, next room will be 22. Let's see how many of these we can kick out before the year's over. Wait. Oh, I thought I'd already stopped the broadcast, but we're still going. Good night, everybody. We can do this. Yeah.